Started when I was 5.
How did that happen? I mean,
Well, my father started Mayfair, and one of the reasons, the main reasons that he started Mayfair was because at the time he was teaching at, various schools, and there was no place for his children to go and the children of his community, just due to segregation. So that's really why he started. So I started at 5. When the
Okay.
studio opened, I was there. Yes.
So I want to do, I have two big goals for the interview,
Okay.
and I want to cover your history and also that of your dad's.
Okay.
Maybe we start with him and
Okay.
try to work our way
Okay.
forward in time.
Sure.
So you said that he opened Mayfair, and that was 1957?
Yes, yes. Now, before that, though, he actually had another school with a partner, and I think it was called Mayfair. It might have been called Mayfair Academy of the Dance, and it was in Hyde Park, but it was primarily all Caucasian students. And so at that time, there was not a lot of crossover. So, he had started earlier, and then, he started Mayfair Academy on the south side.
Where does the name Mayfair come from?
This is very interesting. We used to always ask, where's the name Mayfair come from? He said what he did was he didn't have a name, and so he opened the telephone book just to a certain page, and he hit on Mayfair. That's the story. Yes.
It's one way to do it.
Yes, yes, yes. And back then telephone books were in high demand, and you really used them, and so that's how he found the name.
Okay. I would not have guessed that.
Neither would we, but that's the story that we've always heard. So,
And he's from Chicago, right?
well, he's originally from Brookhaven, Mississippi, and then he came to Chicago as a young child. I'm not sure the age, but he'd been in Chicago most of his life.
When did dance become a part of his life?
I think it really became a part of his life probably as a teenager, and he was a hoofer. So, just with the, different people in the neighborhood, and then they would just start dancing, and, they would have the kind of competitions and, the battles, and that's how he started. So I think it was really quite some time before he actually probably took a lesson. It was more just, being around other tap dancers and,
That's
doing
how
his
it
thing.
happened back
Exactly,
then. Yeah.
exactly.
So he did eventually take lessons? Do you know who his teachers were?
I really don't. I do know that he worked a lot with Mary and Sadie Bruce. And then also he and Sammy Dyer were friends, so I think he did a lot with Sammy Dyer. And then also with, Jimmy Payne. Right, Jimmy Payne. So, and then the other, these things are coming to mind. He worked a lot with the Step Brothers, who were from Chicago. So I really remember as a child, being around these people. So I think they just kind of got together. I'm not sure if they were formal lessons, but, I'm sure he just picked up a lot from them.
You just gather in a room and teach each other
Exactly.
things and jam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And do you know at all about when he became a professional and when that became his
Well,
career?
he went to the service in, he went to the service in the 40s, 1940s. So I think he started dancing professionally before he went to the service. And he did some things with Mike Todd, I think in New York. He did a few shows. Then he went to the service, and when he was in the service, he was actually the entertainment director. And so after the service, then when he came back to Chicago, I think he was still pretty much solo and, just dancing at various places. And then probably, I'd say, probably early 50s is maybe when he more settled into, like, teaching and studio life.
Teaching was important to him?
It was. He was a very outgoing, charismatic person, and he really enjoyed people, and they very much enjoyed him. And then he was very concerned, of course, about his community and about kids.
I read probably in the materials that you gave me that he was teaching at 218 South Wabash.
Yes,
time.
yes, 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 yes.
That's a building that a lot of dancers have
Yes,
gone
yes,
in and
yes.
out
I
of.
grew up at 218 South Wabash.
Eh.
You know, just about, because of course he was there. He had a small, just a small studio, mainly private lessons. And so, we would just go down there a lot and hang out at the studio.
And who was taking class from
Like I said, it was mostly private lessons, mostly Caucasian students, primarily. And I'm not really sure if they were taking to be professional dancers. Some were, but mainly they were just taking classes. And I still, every now and then, I will run into somebody that, took classes with him. I was in the store one time, and the girl just saw my last name, and she just, by any chance? And she had taken, well, she wasn't a girl, she was older, but she had taken classes with him as a child, so.
There's a lot of people around town
Yes,
who could
yes,
say that.
yes, 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 yes. A lot of history.
In fact, I interviewed a woman named Darlene Blackburn not that
Oh,
long
yes.
ago.
African dance. Yes,
But she took
yes.
tap from you.
Yes, 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 yes.
Did Tommy teach just tap or other forms as well?
He taught primarily tap, but he did teach some jazz classes.
Okay. And all of that happened first at 218 South Wabash and then.
Well, it started probably even earlier than that. Like I said, he did have a school on the Midway, actually, like on 57th Street, somewhere, um, where the university is, somewhere along there. So that's where he really started. And I don't remember right now he had a partner. I don't remember. I think her name was Rosemary. I don't remember the last name. I'd have to look that up. But that's where, he really started teaching. And then he went to 218 South Wabash. And that was his school.
Got it. Okay. And at that time, was he only teaching, or were there other facets of his dance career?
He was basically teaching. He was doing a lot of conventions, master classes.
All around the country?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I also read that he choreographed or maybe prepared people for debutante balls?
Oh, yes, he did a lot of debutante balls.
What are those?
Those are, a debutante ball is actually a series of dance figures, and it's ballroom dancing. And so you have maybe, I don't know, 15 or 20 young girls, like 16 or 17. And the purpose of this is, or was at that time, was to present your daughter to society. And that meant that she was ready for courtship, and she was, you're putting her kind of out there. Now, of course, this was a long time ago. But it was a big formal event, and all the girls wore white dresses, and, they had escorts that were in tux. It was really beautiful. And he did, the choreography for a lot of cotillions.
So, like group things,
Yes,
the.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So like a big group, and of course I have photos of those also somewhere. And for a while he did, there were different local organizations, and there's a national organization called the Links, and he did a lot of the cotillions for the Links, and then later he did Mayfair cotillions. He did a few Mayfair cotillions, so he did his own. So yeah, he was really good with ballroom.
How did he get into that?
I'm really not sure. I don't know. But he was the type of person that if he wanted to do something, he was going to figure out how to do it and do it very well. So
He also danced with some big bands, right?
yeah, he did. Right now, I cannot bring recall those names, but yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Was that, I'm guessing, before he opened his studio?
That was probably, I would think, maybe right after he came out of the service, because that would have been like late 40s, yeah, mid-late 40s, yeah.
Yeah, that would be the time for
Mm-hmm,
that.
mm-hmm. And then there was a lot going on too in Chicago at that time. There were a lot of clubs, um, like the Club de Lisa, and then they had, like the Rego and the Tivoli. There were a lot of venues available for that. And then you had a lot of jazz clubs. Nat King Cole was from Chicago, Cab Calloway. So there was a lot of arts and music, going on like in the 40s in Chicago.
And he was a part of that
And he
whole
was
scene.
definitely a part of that, yes.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood and your family growing up. Was it?
Well, my childhood basically has been Mayfair Academy. I started when I was 5, and so this was just our family's life, was the studio. We lived at the studio. That was our life. Everybody took dance classes, whether you really wanted to or not. I, as a child, was very shy, very, very much so. And so I enjoyed the classes, but not the performance. I didn't really like the dancing on stage, but it was all a part of what you did. So, that's just what we did. We went from studio to studio. We were either on the south side at the studio, or we were downtown at the studio, or we were at somebody else's studio, excuse me, or we were at somebody's home in their basement at the studio. So that pretty much was our life. I have a sister, and so she, danced also. My mother did not dance, but she was like the studio wife. So, she worked the desk for a while and, just made sure that we were together and that my father was together. And that's how I grew up.
And was it an option for you to dance or not dance?
It was not an option. But it wasn't like, okay, you just have to do it. I liked dancing. I just didn't like performing. And so really it was great, actually. I tell people all the time that I grew up in Disney World because it was just good. It was dancing, you were around kids all the time, you did shows, you had costumes, you had sequins, you had glitter. It was really not a bad, life as a child. Right. So it was nice.
And was your dad your teacher?
Yes.
What was he like as a teacher?
He was an excellent teacher, actually, but he was pretty strict, in a good way. So I never felt like intimidated because he was my, teacher. But yes, he was my tap teacher. And in fact, I'm trying to think. I don't think I ever had any other teacher beside him, as far as tap is concerned. I never had another teacher, so.
Well, when you got one that good, built right into the family.
Exactly. And then too, at that time, when I was coming up, there were not that many options. On the south side of Chicago, you had Mayfair, you had Sammy Dyer, and Jimmy Bain. And that was pretty much it. So,
So opposite what you said earlier, how there was all these pop-ups. And
Yes.
smaller schools
Yes.
now. Those were really the 3 options.
Yeah, there might have been a few others, but mainly, that was pretty much it.
Wow. And interesting, there's Jimmy Payne Jr.
Mhm,
Interesting
mhm,
that
mhm.
all 3 are still
Yes.
up and running and going strong.
Yes.
Wow. What do you credit with Mayfair's longevity?
I think with Mayfair, one of the key things is family. It's a very family-orientated environment. And because we have been around for a long time, it's generational. So we have, um, you know, grandmothers here now that maybe were in my class and then they brought their children and now they're bringing their grandchildren. So I think that is a lot of it. And then, for so long, we were really very well known for our tap classes, of course, because of my father and the system that he put into place. So I think that too, added to it. And I think just a strong sense of community, consistency. You know, we were here, we were in the same place forever. And I think that just, you know, gave people confidence in what we were doing.
Back when it was really the three of them,
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Payne, Sammy Dyer, and your father,
Mm-hmm.
were they competitive at all, or were there enough?
Well, that's very interesting that you say that. I never felt that they were competitive. In fact, like I said, my father and Sammy Dyer and Jimmy Payne, they were all friends. Now, Sammy Dyer passed, you know, quite some time ago. Um, and I remember, you know, going to shows with my father. So I don't think there was really competition between them. However, as we moved along, a lot of people that went to Sammy Dyer just in later years would always say that we were in competition with them. I never felt that way. I felt there was enough room for everybody, but there was that kind of myth that there was competition between Sammy Dyer and Mayfair.
Yeah, well, with two such strong schools, it probably was more mythic than anything
Yeah,
else,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
And then at the time, back then, we really weren't doing very many competitions, so we weren't really like competing against each other. So, you know, just an urban myth.
yeah. And it did, you know, from what I've learned about, you know, that time, it did seem like they were, if not at least friends, colleagues. And
Yes,
and,
yes, yes, yes. They were really friends.
Yeah,
They were.
yeah. It sounds like a really fruitful time to be a dancer in
Yes,
Chicago.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So you grew up in the studio,
Mm-hmm.
and your dad was your tap teacher. How would you describe both his class and his dancing style to someone like me who's never seen it?
Oh, that's interesting, especially in this day and age. His style was more classic, I would say, as opposed to now everything is rhythm tap. And he was more of a stylized tap, if you get what I mean. More like a Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, you know, that in that era. So, but he was a great teacher, great teacher. In fact, he wrote a book, which is right up there, Tap Along with Tommy. So, you know, he really wanted to share his experiences with other teachers. And he did a lot of workshops and seminars and that sort of thing. But yeah, he was a really good teacher. Like I said, he was strict. But at the time, most dance teachers were very strict in any genre. You know, dance teachers were, okay, let's do this. Can't do that anymore. But he was great. He was a great teacher.
So what would he do or say that makes you say he was strict?
He just, you know, he ran his class. And like I said, we're talking, you know, years ago. So, you know, you could do things then that you couldn't do now. You could talk to kids a certain way that maybe you can't do now because they're a little bit more sensitive. But I don't know how to really portray that to you. But he was just really good. You know, he was just a really good tap dancer. He would just make up little songs and rhymes to go along, you know, with whatever step he was teaching. He had one thing in class is that he always had a step for each class, and you couldn't really leave until you got the step. So you might be there for a while. And at the time, that was okay. If the class ran over a little bit and you were still in there trying to get it. But he wanted to make sure that you really had it, you know, before you left. So he was just, you know, that kind of guy.
Do you remember any of, you know, like the steps that were distinctly him, or a warm up or something?
Well, you know, he developed a whole exercise system, which a lot of people still use to this day. So he had, I think, like 8 different exercises. You know, exercise 1 and 2 are just, you know, in my brain so much because we did it so much. But if you go to a lot of schools in Chicago, they have used a lot of his system. And all of that is really in his book, too. So he did, you know, and then there were steps, of course, that he did that, you know, just kind of come to mind that were like his signature steps. So I'm not going to do it for you. But he did have his own style.
You saw me, yeah.
I
getting
saw
ready.
that. I saw that. I saw that. I saw that.
So,
Maybe by the end of the interview, I might.
Okay.
I might decide to
Okay.
to do a little something for
We
you.
gotta hear at least a little something, something, I think. So, at what, you grew up taking classes and performing annually?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we performed everywhere.
Really?
We were not an official company, but we just did a lot of community events. So, every weekend, every other weekend, we were dancing somewhere.
Like in community centers?
Community centers, churches, teas, just whatever came up, we danced. We might dance outside in the park where you didn't have a floor and you had to find a piece of board this big. And that's what we did. We just went from place to place and we danced.
That's a whole other education.
Yeah, it's when I think about it now, it's like, oh my gosh, that was a lot. But, that's just what we did. And he would just pack us up and, we would go. And he would have different groups. Sometimes it might be like 5 or 6 of us. Sometimes it might be a whole group. He'd take a bus. But we danced a lot as children, in different places. In fact, and I guess it was about we were on there twice, maybe about 1962. I was on with a small group on the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ted Mack.
No, tell me.
But Ted Mack was like the original Star Search, that sort of show. And so he would just bring on different acts, singing, dancing, magic acts, whatever. And then they would have a winner at the end of the show. No, we did not win, but they would have a winner. In fact, that's where Gladys Knight was discovered from Ted Mack.
No way.
Yes, yes. And so at that time, in the early 60s, you didn't see black people on TV at all. And so Ted Mack was really very instrumental in bringing a lot of, talent to his show. So I do give him credit for that. And I do have a copy of that tape if you would like to see it one day.
Absolutely.
All right.
So you're saying there were people of all colors on the Ted Mack show?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, 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 yes,
And
yes,
that
yes.
was probably
It really was, because I just saw an interview with Gladys Knight, and she won the show. And so they gave you this big, huge trophy, and she was saying at the end of the show, they wanted her to take a picture with all the other contestants with the trophy, and the other contestants would not take the picture with her. And so Ted Mack himself came out and took the picture with her and the trophy. So, that shows you how things were at the time.
yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you mentioned too that your dad moved the studio to the south side because of segregation.
Right, right. Because at the
how the
time,
city
we
was
really could
segregated.
not go downtown and take classes from, different places. So we needed something, in our own community.
Teachers would turn you away?
Well, I don't know. I don't really know because I was so young.
Yeah.
But it was just the times. I know as a young child, I was kind of sheltered from that because of him and because of what he did. But you just knew that there were certain places that you just did not go or could not go. And I think it was maybe 65 when there was the actual, act of desegregation. But still, it was, there was just certain places that, you just didn't go. You didn't go downtown to take a dance class. You stayed where, you stayed on the south side. And then, of course, things opened up. But even as a child, I told you I grew up at 218 South Wabash. And so I was in that environment. And I never felt the prejudice, but I kind of knew it was there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like Chicago's kind of ridden with problems of all kinds,
Right,
race being
right,
one of
right,
them.
right.
Later in life, did you ever learn more about the discrimination your father must have faced
You
working
know,
as a
it's
dancer?
really something, and that's one of the things that I really wish I could have that conversation with him now. But, I would ask him from time to time because as a child, I would go with him sometimes. He did a lot of private lessons and he did them in Chicago as well as in the suburbs. So he would go to people's homes and teach, classes, and I would go with him sometime. But everybody always treated us extremely well. I never felt, any prejudice, but I guess that's because of, where we were going. But I would ask him about it, and he said that every now and then he might have some issues, like maybe if he were driving somewhere in a certain suburb or certain area, they might stop him, asked him what he was doing there, and then let him go. But other than that, um, I don't really know. And I don't know how he really made all those strides in the 40s and 50s. It's remarkable at this point for me to look back at that because I'm not sure how he did that. I have no idea, really. Because most people weren't doing that, so.
Yeah,
Mm,
and it seems like tap was actually one of those ways in which a lot of folks made
Yes,
strides, the
yes,
Nicholas
yes.
brothers.
Exactly. I got an award a few years back from CHRP, and it was for lifetime achievement in tap. And I'm thinking, lifetime achievement, my gosh, I must be getting old. And then I was thinking, well, I don't really deserve this, or I don't really, I don't know why they're really giving this to me. So then when I really start to think about it, it's like, well, I guess I have really been raised all my life in tap. And I have been there. But when I was, kind of giving my little speech, what I recalled was that, I had been in all these venues and all these different places with all these different people and, in people's homes and I just felt tap dancers were such great people because I never ever felt any prejudice at all from that community. Now, things in the dance community still have a long way to go, I feel. But in the tap community, I just never felt it or really saw it.
Wouldn't it be great if we could get everybody in this country to
Oh,
tap?
I know, I know, I know, I know. It would be so nice. It would be so nice.
You said you think in the dance community in general there are still problems? What do you mean by that?
Well, I think things are there. My stomach is going. I'm sorry.
Do you need a snack? You want to pause? Okay.
Um, Things have really opened up a lot for dancers, dancers of color, in the last, say, 20 years. But still, things are not where they need to be. On the outside of our building, we have a picture of Misty Copeland. And of course, this is a fantastic thing. She was made a principal dancer in 2015. 2015, which is ridiculous. It just doesn't make any sense. And there have been so many talented dancers of color in everything, in tap, in ballet, in jazz, in modern, and they just never got that recognition. So I think we still have a long way to go, especially in the area of ballet.
Is Misty Copeland someone your students today really look up to?
They do, and we had such a wonderful experience last year. We were invited to be on the Steve Harvey show. And so, she wrote a book. I think it was called Body by Ballet or something to that effect. And so they invited the students to be on there, and they didn't know that she was going to be there. They told them that they were going to talk about her. Okay, so we get there, and they go, and they had a little dance prepared, and they just asked them about Misty Copeland, and a lot of them, they were like, oh, that's my idol, and blah blah blah. So then they were talking to Steve Harvey, and he said, turn around, and she was there, and they just lost it. I'll show you the tape. It was great. It was so wonderful. It was just, it was one of our better days. So, of course, they just went crazy. And, she gave them some words of encouragement. And then afterwards, which was really, really nice, we had gone to the dressing room to change to go back home. And then she came and knocked on the door. And she has a Barbie doll. And she had signed the Barbie dolls for each one of them. It was just, it was a really great experience. So, yes, that is one of our dance idols, definitely.
Well, even better that they have this personal relationship
Yes,
with
yes,
her now, and
yes,
that she was
yes,
so
yes.
great with them. Yeah. At what point did teaching become a part of your dance career?
Well, I never really wanted to be a dancer. Ever, never. So I grew up dancing and I went away to college. And I wasn't really sure, what I really wanted to do. When I first went away, I majored in special ed. And then that really didn't work for me. And so then I majored in accounting because I figured I could always get a job. So I majored in accounting. Um, After I graduated from school, I came back home and I kind of floundered for a while as to what I really wanted to do. And I had a couple of jobs. And then I think my father was like, let me kind of help you out a little bit. So I started working at the studio just a little bit. I started teaching baby classes. And then this is really literally how it happened. One day he had gone to Atlanta and he came back and he said, I am getting ready to retire and I'm moving to Atlanta and here are the keys. And you are going to be the director. It was just kind of cut and dry. And I was like, really? That was never anything that I ever thought that I would want to do. But like I said, I was kind of floundering. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. The accounting was fine, but it really was not for me. And so that's really how it started. So I became the director. He retired. He moved to Atlanta. And I took over, and the rest is history. And here I am.
And here you are.
And here I am, yes.
Do you think that was his plan all along?
I don't know. I do know that, like I told you, I was a very shy child. I do know that at the time he saw a lot more in me than I saw in myself, as I'm sure most parents do. But because I didn't really think he was such a big person, a big personality, I never thought that I could step in his shoes, which I realized later that I don't need to step in his shoes. I have my own shoes. But I think he saw something in me that I didn't know that was there. And, I've been here actually longer than he was at Mayfair.
When was the transition?
About 1978.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, that really became my passion. Like I said, I'm not the performer, but my passion is teaching and then producing and directing. I love putting together the shows and, we do all kinds of things here at Mayfair. We do a big show, a big annual show that we've, done for the history of Mayfair. But we do smaller performances and, just really trying to expose the kids to as much as I possibly can. So when we do our shows, we do big venues because I want the kids to know that, yes, these venues are here for you and for everybody else. So we do, our shows lately have been at the Harris Theater, but we've done the Erie Crown, Navy Pier, Medina Temple. I want them to have those, professional dance experiences.
Yeah, and what great spaces.
Yes.
And you do other things around town throughout the year?
Yeah, we do a lot of community events. Sometimes we'll do some small shows like at the Logan Center. We just did a show last year, the Mayfair story. We told the story of Mayfair. So, we do a lot of things.
What sorts of things have you noticed that maybe you learned from your dad that you're passing along to students now or throughout the last 40 years?
I think just having confidence in yourself and to be able to realize that, yes, I can do this. the one thing too that this is really just kind of an aside, but my father was notoriously late for everything. His classes started late. He was late. He was always late. However, the show always started on time. And to this day, our shows always start on time. The show starts at 2 o'clock. That curtain is coming up at 2 o'clock. And so I think it's a small thing, but it's something that we've really instilled in the students. That show is starting on time, and you need to be ready, and you need to give your audience the respect, of starting on time. So it's little things like that that, you try to pass on.
And they're, ultimately they're not so little, right? That's
Yes,
professionalism.
yes, exactly.
That's something that applies, far beyond dance. Which,
Right. So now, to this day, if I go to any show and they do not start on time, I'm like, what? I give you 5-10 minutes, but come on now, let's get it moving. So, it's little things like that you try to instill in your students. Confidence and, to use your gifts to dance full out. To just do the best you can do, not only in dance, but in life.
You said going to shows. Did you see a lot of dance growing up?
Yes.
Outside of the studio?
Yes.
What do you remember seeing?
I can't even pinpoint it. I mean, I went to so many shows. I do remember going to Sammy Dyer shows, which were big shows. His shows were more, at that time, it was, Sammy Dyer was a school of dance, drama, and they did a lot of acrobatics. And so they had more, I don't know what you would call them at the time, but like a operetta. I don't know if you know what an operetta is.
Oh, like a story?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So they would have those kind of big shows. But I went to so many different recitals as a child, just various schools around the country. I mean, well, not around the country, around the city. And then sometimes we would go to the workshops with him or the conventions. Not a lot, but we would do some of that. And I have been to so many dance performances that at this point it takes a lot to get me out. Just because I've been to so many.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been to a lot.
Yeah. Well, and you see it every day too.
Yes, I see it every day. And I try, of course, to support the dance community. And so just through the years, I've been, just all of them. Of course, Ailey and Dancing in Harlem and Joseph Holmes, Joe Hall, and I would have to really kind of to go back. Darlene Blackburn, Montu, on and on and on and on and on. Just a lot of.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything, especially, because Joseph Holmes is no longer here and that company doesn't exist, is there anything in particular that you remember about them? They're a little bit harder to document because they don't exist?
I don't really know that much history on them, but at the time, I was, of course, much younger, and I was friends with a lot of those dancers. So I just remember them, these were young dancers, and this was their life, and, just really kind of giving their all to these companies, to get them started, both Joseph Holmes and Joe Hall used to teach at Mayfair, some years ago. So, it was just the way things were at the time. And like I said, I don't really know that much history about them. Of course, Joel is still going strong, but with Joseph Holmes. And then I do know that at one time they brought Kevin Ayega into to kind of, take over Joseph Holmes. I don't know what really happened. And of course he went, this was deeply rooted. And, of course they're a wonderful, wonderful company. In fact, we're going to do a workshop with them next week. They're coming here to do a workshop with our kids. Yeah. So, there have been, companies, of course, that have come and gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we're on the subject of community, who are, I didn't know either one of them taught here, Joseph or Joel.
Yeah, they both did.
Who else has kind of come in and out of Mayfair, either as students or teachers or?
Um, those teachers would be primarily the ones that you would know. Trey Dumas, he started here. He started his dance career at Mayfair, so of course, he was here. Other instructors, I can't think of anybody right now that you would possibly know of. As far as dancers, no one, big name, but we had a lot of dancers that would go on and work with different companies, or that might be in the touring company of the Lion King, or just doing different things like that. Yeah, and of course our biggest alumni was Michelle Obama, which we we definitely claim her, and she was at Mayfair probably in the, I'd say probably in the early 70s, and she didn't take for long, but she took tab for a couple of years, so we do claim her as our star student.
As you should. Were you around then?
I was not. Actually, when she was here, I was away at college. So, yeah. I have met her just briefly, and it kind of, this was before she was the first lady, and just kind of went up and introduced myself. And, we talked very briefly about her dance career, very briefly, and that's been it. So we're going to maybe try this year to reach out to her and see, since this is our big year, if we can do something.
Okay, so this is getting into my question from earlier.
Okay.
What are your plans to celebrate?
Well, this is our 60th anniversary, so we have a few things on the agenda. We're not doing a lot of things, but in fact, 2017 in April, we did Lift Every Voice, the Mayfair story. And so we told the story of Mayfair, the 60 years of Mayfair, and it was in conjunction with the opening of the Natural History Museum in DC. And so they were encouraging different organizations to lift their voice. So, we were kind of in partnership with them. So so that kind of started things off. So we took the kids to the museum. So we took about 100 people, parents and kids. And so we went to the museum in February. And then, we did the show in April. So for 2018, we're going to do the Mayfair, which is an outdoor fair for like the community. So we'll, use our parking lot, and we're gonna have food trucks and all that, and we'll put on some performances and just try to bring the community into, what we're doing into the building. So we're doing that, and, just some small things. And then we do our big show in June, where, it's just gonna be a big thing, our 60th. And then after our 60th, we're all going to Disney World. So this is really a great thing. We're doing a dance competition in Disney. So we're taking right now, we have a lot of people going, maybe about 150 people going. So we're going to Disney. So that's pretty much our plans for the 60th.
Hey, sounds like a great way to celebrate.
Exactly. So it's really been a good year. Like I said, we went to the museum. We did the Steve Harvey show. We had our show. So, things are just kind of moving along.
And it's your 40th.
Yes. So we're not doing too much with that right now. I'm trying to figure out, eventually how I can, I shouldn't say eventually, soon, how I can really kind of back out and, So we're putting things into, to play for that.
Into play for transitioning to
Yes,
new
transitioning.
leadership?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So for years, for just about all the time that we've been in business, we were just a family-owned business, and so just recently we have gone nonprofit, so that it is an entity all unto itself, and that we can make that transition.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And is it going to still be a family business?
No.
Okay.
The family's not too. The family is very supportive, but not too much interested in actually taking over. but who knows? My daughter is moving back to Chicago, so we'll see.
You could pull the Tommy Sutton
Well, I
and just hand her the
could.
keys.
She would hand them right back, but who knows? Who knows? We'll just see what's going to happen.
That's really something, you know,
Mhm,
of a
mhm.
family business
Yeah,
with this
yeah,
much
yes.
history.
Yes.
That's going to be a big change.
It was really something. Just this past weekend, my grandnieces were here, and they've just started taking class. So, there's three of them. Two of them actually live in Phoenix, but they were just here for the weekend. So they're in the 3-year-old class. And so afterwards, they came down here and took a picture. We have this frame, for the 60th. And so they were standing here, and then we realized, okay, they're right here. So these are his great-great-grandchildren. They are taking class. So, it just goes on.
It does
Yes,
just go
it
on.
does. It does.
And it sounds like the students here get a really comprehensive education. I mean, they're going to the African American
Yes,
Museum.
yes. A
in
lot of
DC,
exposure.
and-
A lot of
yeah.
exposure. Yeah.
How much of the family history and Tommy's history do they know?
Well, they know a lot now because we did it last year. So it was a very, I think, inclusive story. We talked a little bit about him, of course, me coming in, just the climate at the time that Mayfair started. A lot of them were surprised to know that, early on, just about all of his students were white. So, this is some history that they didn't know. So I think now that they really get an idea of, what's happening. And when we had the show, it was really something because a lot of, even the parents and, people that have been around for a long time really didn't know the story. So I thought it was really important for me to tell the story, and get it out of my head and onto something so, that people would really know what's going on.
And what a creative way to do it.
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It turned out really well.
That's so cool. And I think I asked you this before we had the camera going, but how many students are here at Mayfair now?
About 400.
And about how many were there in the first 20 years when your
When my
dad
father was there,
started?
I'm not really sure. I would say probably about 400, 500 maybe at tops. But now, ironically, 10 years ago, of course, was our 50th, which was a big, big show. We had 2 studios at the time. So we had a studio on 79th Street, and we had a studio in Country Club Hills. And in the show, we had 700 students in the show. So, of course, like I said, we had two studios, and we've since closed one. So you can just see, how things have changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm, mhm.
Is that a reason why you formed a not-for-profit at all?
That's part of it, yes, because, we do need to get more support, from the community, from grants, that's something that before we never did. So yes, that, and also, like I said, so that it would be an entity all in itself without, me being there.
Yeah. So up until then, it was tuition.
Yes, we were 100% supported by our
Yeah.
parents, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I was curious too, well, I guess your dad didn't have the same kind of dance career that a lot of people had back then, where like certain jobs they took to pay the bills and to support the jobs that they really wanted to do. Was that the structure of your father's career as much?
Before I was born, I'm sure he had to do some things. One of the stories I remember is that he sold Bibles door to door. It's like, okay. But from the time I was a child, dancing supported his family. Sent my sister and myself to college. That's what he did. Yeah.
And what neighborhood did he grow up in? I forgot.
He grew up in Woodlawn.
And what about where did you grow up?
I grew up in Park Manor.
Okay.
And the first studio that we had, it was on 79th, which is now King Drive. At the time, it was called South Park. So it was on 79th and South Park was the first studio. And I'm trying to think what community. I don't know if that's probably Chatham, I would assume.
Okay. Okay. I also remember reading that, my guess is in the 50s, your father was a part of stage arts theater group.
Okay.
Does this sound familiar at all?
Yes, but I don't really know that much about it. But now that you mentioned it, I think I remember seeing something with that on there.
Yeah.
Like a picture or something, but I don't really recall that much about it.
It seemed like its purpose was to produce integrated ballets,
Okay.
probably at a time
Okay,
when
yeah,
they did not
yes,
exist anywhere
right.
else.
So I don't really know too much about that.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. But it does seem like he was kind of at the forefront of.
He was. And like I said, I don't know where it really came from, but it didn't seem to me, I'm sure, that he had, that there were some barriers put in front of him. But he kind of seemed to knock them down. So,
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Is there anything that we haven't yet touched on that you want to make sure that we do?
Let me think. No, I mean, I think we've kind of covered, what he was about, what I'm doing, still trying to do, trying to leave my own legacy, at Mayfair, and hopefully that it, will continue into the future. Ironically, our show this year is called Mayfair Land, and it goes 60 years into the future. So it's called Mayfair Land 2078. So we're going to see where would Mayfair be 60 years from now. So just really, we've had the 60 years, and it's been wonderful, but we don't want to be 60 years old. We want to be the next 60 years. So what we've done for the last 60 years has been great, but it's time to transition and, change things up a little bit. Dance is changing. Of course, I'm getting much older. And so, dance is a youthful business. And so need to bring more of that young energy into Mayfair. And that's what we're trying to do right now.
Thinking a lot about legacy and
Oh,
things
yes.
like that.
Yes.
What would you like your legacy to be? What would you like students 60 years from now to know about you?
I would like them to just know that, here was an African American woman who had a business in the arts. Because a lot of times people, they just want to dance, but there is a business to the arts. And so I want them to know that it is definitely possible. It's possible in the community. I want them to know that I tried to expose them to the best venues that I could in Chicago. I tried to expose them to art, to music, to culture, and that if I can do it, they can do it too.
It's a pretty good legacy.
Yeah. That's, pretty much it. And like I said, just really want to expose them to all that there is to offer in this city and others.
Why Chicago? I mean, you went away to school, you did come back. What has kept you here?
I'm not really sure. I love Chicago, actually. I've thought about maybe moving. Actually, when my father moved to Atlanta, before he moved, he asked me if I wanted to move to Atlanta and open a school in Atlanta. And at the time, I did not want to do that. So, I don't know. It's just something about Chicago. I'm born and bred here. One of the things that I do love about Chicago is that it is so rich in culture. There's so many things to do, arts and music and dance and museums, and, that really just feeds my soul. So I think that's really, why I like Chicago. It's not too fast. New York is a little fast for me. LA is a little la-la. So I think Chicago is kind of right in the middle. So I love Chicago.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't ask this earlier. What prompted your father's move to Atlanta?
He had a student that their family had moved to Atlanta, and he went to visit, and he just, I guess, decided that's really where he wanted to be. He was at retirement age, the same age I am now, and decided that, that's where he wanted to be. The weather, of course, was much better, the climate was better. So, that's why he moved to Atlanta.
And was he ready to retire, or was that a difficult?
Well, he was ready. No, it wasn't difficult. I think that, since I'm at retirement age, there's a reason why there's an age, because you get to a point where you're kind of ready. And I think with him, he was just ready. He had done the teaching for so long, and he was just ready for something else. Now, of course, he didn't go there and just sit down and do nothing. He wrote a book, and he did some DVDs. He taught at Spelman. He taught at, I think, Atlanta University. So he did a lot of teaching. He did a lot of traveling. He went to Germany a lot. He went to Canada. He did a lot of traveling. So he did dance and teach, up until the end.
I bet he was,
Yes.
sought after.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was. He
Yeah.
was. He was. So I have a lot of articles about him in Atlanta, and I was showing you the hat with the tap on it. Students gave him that, and then I have a Christmas wreath, which is really special to me, that his students gave him in Atlanta, and it's a big wreath and they took a tap off. Each one of them took a tap off their shoe and signed it and made the wreath. And this was really as he was. He passed of cancer, and so this is when he was sick, and I thought that was just such a great tribute to him. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah, Atlanta was good for him.
What has been 40 years running Mayfair? What has been one of the biggest surprises to you?
Surprises?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know. I can't really think of like a surprise.
Something you didn't expect.
I didn't expect to be here. That's the biggest surprise. That's the biggest surprise. If you would have asked me, 40 years ago, if I would be doing this is the last thing I would have been doing. So that's really the biggest surprise, is me actually being here. Pretty much, Mayfair has really pretty much been consistent. Really over the last 60 years, there's not been a lot of changes, inside of Mayfair. Dance classes pretty much go on as usual. Thank God we have not had any issues, like any big issues or problems. At 79th Street, the reason that we moved from 79th Street was because of the violence. But it was all around us, but it never really affected us. It never came inside the school. So actually, things have been pretty much the same. You can look at pictures, like class pictures of kids from like the 50s and 60s, and you could really say it's like the same kids that are here now. Sometimes I'll see a child and I'll think, oh, and just kind of register, and it's like, no, that child's probably 40 years old now. It's not her. So, there haven't really been too many surprises. Yeah.
Violence in the neighborhood sounds like a pretty big challenge, though.
Just living on the south side of Chicago, growing up, wonderful, just a wonderful community, things are great. But in the past 15 years maybe, we all know that it's just really gone out of hand. And not even so much on the south side, just all over the city, the things that have just happened very recently in the city. So, it's really hard when you've grown up in that community to see the decline. Really, really hard to watch. Because, like I said, we had been in that location for, 45 years and did not want to leave. However, it just got to the point where, it was kind of closing in on us. And, of course, I had to realize the safety of our students and our parents, our number one concern. So, really hard to see. Really hard to see that.
What about some of the biggest rewards?
The biggest rewards, now of course there are big things like Steve Harvey and we go to this place and that place, but the biggest reward for me is to see a child either on stage or in class and just to see, once they get it and to see them perform and to see their face just light up. That for me is everything. To stand in the wings, I told you I was a backstage girl, to stand in the wings and to see a little kid, maybe this is their first recital, and so they're kind of scared and they're seeing all the people and it's dark outside, but they hear that applause and they just light up. And to me that is great. And then also just seeing kids, their progress. So they might start at 3 or 4 or 5, whatever. And then maybe about 12 or 13, you just see them bloom. And so that for me is why I'm still here.
Sounds like a great place to end.
Yeah, yeah.
And you got the best seat in the house for that show, right?
Exactly. So, pretty much that's my story.
Well, thank you for sharing it with us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a Chicago institution.
It really is. It really is. And I feel proud, really proud to be a part of that and, proud to be the director.